So I've been working on a really big stop motion project, and it's taken me way longer than I really expected, but that's going to be okay because today I'm going to be making some of the cast for that stop motion project, which are some of these flood forms right here. Now we're going to be painting them up in today's video, and I'm going to keep them a simple paint job for the simple fact that we're going to be moving these figures around a lot, touching them a lot, and I don't need to put 10 hours per figure into them if some of the paint's going to eventually be rubbed off anyway. But what I'm using here is a wet palette, and then I'm going to be using a little bit of parchment paper and some pennies to put all the way around it to make sure that parchment paper sticks on there. Now, I use a lot of Citadel, Army Painter, and Vallejo paints. I will definitely say that Vallejo paint is probably the best paint in my opinion. Now, there's kind of a mix between everything, but it's probably one of my favorites. We'll be using some Citadel for the flood figures though. So I'm just wetting my brush at first. I got this brush from Michaels, which is a craft store in Minnesota. And pretty much I'm just gonna go around and start painting on the figure. Now I have a lot of these guys to do, so I did this in a big bunch project. So I wanted to make sure I got done with all of them in a timely fashion. But as you can see, I'm just very carefully going around the entire custom figure and applying various different layers. It takes about 2 to 3 layers when you don't do a black base coat to make sure that everything really seals perfectly and you get that nice flood texture onto everything. Now, a lot of people in the community will get mad at me because I'm not using a black base coat, but honestly, I feel like if you use 2 or 3 just normal coats, you're pretty much fine. The black coat is nice, but it's not necessary, especially with something that's going to be moved around a lot and have clay stuck on it for a stop motion project. Painting is always a very relaxing and time-consuming process, especially when you're working on multiple different figures like this all at once. And I really just took my time and gone around every single custom and just made sure that everything was perfect. You don't want to waste too much time going back and having to redo a bunch of steps, so making sure you do it right the first time is pretty important. Then we're just adding a little bit of Citadel red as well onto these tendril forms, and I used a black wash right after on the flood forms just to give them a little bit more darkness and get kind of those nooks and cracks that I sculpted popping. Now I like to add blood to a little bit of my figures. I feel like the blood would be squirting out considering they're getting infected and their body's augmenting and twisting. So I added just a little bit of blood around this entire grunt. And a little bit of blood on the brute as well. Just dabbing it into areas that you kind of created that might be interesting, I always find to be very fun. I don't use too much blood because it can kind of mix differently and then you're kind of just over blooding your figure. So just a little bit really makes a big difference in adding some color to the custom. Same thing with this elite. When his mouth is open, I kind of want his mouth to be screaming and then there'd be blood coming out of his mouth, so I made sure that I just added a little bit on there and then a little bit on the side of him as well. And once all those figures are bloodied up and done, they're looking pretty good. They're definitely looking unique and interesting, that's for sure, which is exactly what I was going for. Now, I don't typically do this, but I want to make a little base. Typically, the bases that I make, they're not super interesting, but this one is going to have a lot of different purposes, and it's going to be shown at the end of this video as well. Pretty much, it was just a little piece of cardboard, and this is like those foam mats that you can put on the ground, kind of siding. I just like the siding on the texture of the foam mats because they're really good for like Forerunner style look with very minimal effort. And then we're just adding a bunch of hot glue down and applying a dollar store foam core piece right on top of that. After that's finished, a little bit of painting time. I made sure to add plenty of paint, and I didn't want to do 2 or 3 coats, so I just really made sure it was all thick and on there perfectly. This is just such a nice color that's going to contrast with everything else really, really well. We're going to be doing red on one side and then blue on the other side, which this just kind of came to my head as I was doing it. I want to be more creative with my work in general, so trying to be more creative with my little displays as well. All the paint that I'm using for how vibrant it is really cheap. It only cost me like 50 cents per paint bottle, or maybe it's like 60 cents now, but you really can't beat that price. Now we're going to be adding in all these little stone pillars to give everything a lot of shape and kind of like this dark, creepy kind of look. But I think it looks awesome for displaying your figures on. Pretty much just a simple under $1 diorama base, I guess you could say. And making little things like this, along with my custom figure projects, is something I want to do a lot more too. Just having more be made all the time, just to display your figures in different areas, really makes a big difference. And it's just kind of fun. I'm always about having fun with my projects, and I think this was a really fun little project to work on. And hopefully you guys like the little base and like all the custom figures. As always, guys, that's all for me today. Pretty simple one, just wanted to give you a little update. The stop motion is going really well, but I needed to make a bunch of flood figures for it, so that's what I did here today. I plan on doing a couple more videos coming out soon with some challenges and different style of things. As always, let me know in the comment section down below what you would like to see as well, whether it's Halo or a different video game. And that's gonna be pretty much all for me today. I hope everybody has a great rest of your day, evening, or night, and I'll see you guys all in the next video. Peace out.